Hello, and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly program where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. As a reminder, the thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, we love seeing you live every Thursday night in Facebook and YouTube land. The comments are always fun. We try to get to all the comments, but remember your comments may show up on the show. And if you can't catch us live, catch us on the replay or in your favorite podcasting app. You know me, John Ruark, past master of the Patriot Lodge, number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia. And let's see, next up, Robert Johnson, mixing it up. How are you tonight?
I'm doing really well. Just got home from a Masters and Wardens meeting for my district. I got to hang out with our district deputy a little bit, chit-chat about all kinds of great stuff happening in the district. So charged up, ready to talk about Masonry. Happy to be here. All the things.
All of them. Excellent. And last but not least for tonight, Joe Martinez, a traveling man himself. How are you?
Hello and good evening. I got the memo on the t-shirt, obviously. John did not. Hello, Joe Martinez. Let's see. Past and current master of Manassas Lodge, number 182, for the third and final time. And happy to be here.
Happy to have you, even on the road.
Yes.
Super cool, super cool. Let's get right to business. I want to give a special shout out to the patrons who support the show. You guys are amazing. So head over to patreon.com/the Masonic Roundtable to chip in, support the show, and support free Masonic education for years to come.
Well, for 15 more years.
Or until 2040, whichever. Your mileage may vary.
Right.
Not valid in Indiana.
Yes.
All right. Very cool. And then I guess that brings us up to the next segment that we always love, right? Which is what, Joe? What is it?
Tarot card of the week.
So I'm in a hotel and I had to crank the volume way down because I did not need the 18th floor of the Hilton Garden Inn to hear this.
Well, good. You're very considerate.
Thank
It's
you.
very kind of you.
Yes.
So it's funny because I was just shuffling the deck here. I was going to use the Bones Arcana deck, and let me switch cameras here. And so we got Bones Arcana deck, a nice skull-based deck for those who like skulls and masonry.
We do.
And as I was shuffling, one card jumped out. It's ever happened to you guys?
Always, man.
Hit it.
So the card that jumped out, Two of Wands.
Ooh.
Reversed. So for those who'd like to see the upright version, there it is. Still following the Rider-Waite-Smith system.
But you said this one was reversed.
It popped out. Boom, landed just like that right next to me.
Some personal sort of
Strife. Indecision.
Yeah,
what do you want to
definitely
do?
say.
You got some goals maybe to achieve. Maybe a lack of planning.
Ooh, lack of planning. That's a good one.
That is interesting. Man, it makes me think, right? Like, because I think for the most of us, we're very sort of organized people, even though it may be like chaotically organized.
Yes. Organized chaos. I love it.
Don't move things on my desk.
Oh, yeah. God.
Oh, my gosh. We have that in common. Look at that.
Anytime Corey moves my shoes,
I know. If it's just an inch, I'll know. I can
I'm
go
like,
look and...
where are my shoes? She's like, where they're supposed to be. Like, they're supposed to be where I left them
No.
every day.
Well, it's like the organized chaos thing, right? Like you guys have seen my desk. It's kind of it's a poop show sometimes, but I know where everything is. I don't have to look.
Everything is. I can just grab and reach. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Spatially oriented.
And it
Love
works. Yeah.
A place for everything and a thing for every place. Now, yeah, so if it brings us to sort of like a lack of planning, it makes me think, I don't think I have a lack of planning, but I'm sure there are areas of my life where obviously everybody lacks in some area of that.
Something. You're giving something else up. Opportunity costs, right?
Mhm.
And that's the thing. Like 2 of Wands, it's a very this or that. I got to make a decision. Project management, like energy card, and if it's reversed, something's holding you back from making that decision. Either you're missing something, you're personally not feeling it.
It's one or the other. You know, you can't sit in
Yeah.
the back seat and go skiing all the time.
Oh man.
Okay. So make a decision, people.
Make
Do
a
the
decision.
thing. Do the thing.
Do that thing. Awesome. Well, this will be a fun show. So, looking back and going through our archives, I realized we really haven't talked much as a full show topic on guns in lodge.
You're assuming we're going to get a full show
What?
topic. So
Yes. Oh man, because this is certainly a passionate topic on all sides, and we'll talk about the pros and cons that come with open carry, concealed carry, yes, no, who, how, when, under what conditions, and the usual answer is it's jurisdictional. So, yeah,
it depends, just like the
it
two of Wands.
depends. It's
It
the consultant answer.
depends.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think maybe one of the first places to start is thinking about the question in general, like what have people asked before? There was a great Reddit thread that was just called Weapons in Lodge that was on r/Freemasonry.
Yeah.
And once you got past like the jokes, which were literal gold, like one guy says that aprons that don't have a place for like concealed carry is a totally missed opportunity.
Some aprons have the pocket on the inside. Like, hey,
The glove pocket.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a question that comes off often. How is it perceived by local brothers who show up all the time? How is it perceived when a guy who has never carried before starts carrying? How is it perceived by a candidate? How is it perceived by a brand new Master Mason who that might take him aback a little bit? All kinds of good questions I think are related to the topic.
Agreed. And I want to give a special shout out to the Traveling Man, who gave a nice little super chat, but also kicks off the conversation. So, sitting worshipful master of Beacon Light Lodge number 76 of the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of New York.
Woo!
Remember to bring nothing offensive or defensive to lodge.
That's a good
place to start.
It is. And I was thinking about this a little bit actually on my way home. I thought, what were some of the, and Traveling Man, that is a great point, but it was like the first thing,
very first thing
that I thought of as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, easy, or what do they call it, low hanging fruit, but it's the thing that I think we jump to right away. And my question is, in my jurisdiction, that only applies one time in all of the ritual.
Interesting.
And it's just why we explain how you're dressed for your entered apprentice.
Well,
and it's never again brought up.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the two schools of thought on the nothing offensive or defensive is it part of your Masonic obligation? It's not in the obligations, but the general, the big O obligation of we won't carry anything offensive or defensive into the lodge, or is it, to your point, part of your initiation where we don't know you, you don't know us, you're not coming in strapped because you want to be one of us. So,
and the third option.
Oh, there's a third.
Which is the offensive or defensive is really symbolic. Like most things in Freemasonry, right? The other meaning, the allegorical meaning, is you don't bring minerals and metals into energy work. Right? So
but that part also is
but for the
part of your
initiation. Yeah, that's a good point.
Like we don't take our watches and our rings off to go to lodge.
You don't? I do every time.
I don't. All my piercings, they stay in.
I bring my cell phone so I can call in airstrikes. I mean,
Yep.
so that's
Yeah.
it goes, I think, larger than the sort of symbolic meaning of. I think maybe the three of us are at least in some sort of agreement that this sort of prohibition against these types of things coming into a lodge might be more pertinent to the idea of the initiatic experience and a sort of purity and baseness of what you're about to do, right? Like, you got to come in. It's almost like you're being symbolically washed of all the things, and you're coming in essentially naked. And maybe that's the way it's supposed to be, but we are like these socially moral animals who feel they need to be clothed all the time. Not judging, I'm just saying that's the way we are. And so we got to put on a garment from on high. I put more metal on than lodge lapel pins. Yeah. All right.
Fair point.
But so if we can, do we agree on that?
I think I agree with what you said. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's part of, it's the unknown of the candidate, right? Like, we want you to be cleansed of all the outside world things because we don't know you, and you're coming in the same way that we came in, right? And but to John's point, it's more symbolic than necessary,
so
right?
I'm trying to think too where, especially if you get into like Night Masons, everything's got a sword, right? So inside a tiled, ceremony, right? In Pennsylvania, even for the entered apprentice degree, you might see more than one sword. So
but some blue lodges, some craft lodges have swords as part of their regalia as well. So
right, so that's inside a tiled portion of the lodge. So if you're trying to say that nothing offensive or defensive is a blanket statement for when you do lodge work, it's not even jurisdictional at that point. It gets even grayer.
Yeah. And so Jesse C brings up a good point. He says, just to throw this curveball, the subject is concealed carry. If it's done properly, you would never know if someone was packing. And I think fair point. Illinois was a weird state, and I'll give you just 3 or 4 sentences on this. In that, Illinois had 0 concealed carry law, which was sometime in the 20-teens deemed to be unconstitutional. And so the High Court of the land basically said, you have until this date, and if you don't come up with a bill, draft it and pass it by this date, constitutional carry will be the law of Illinois. And so you had essentially the Chicago machine, political machine, was frantically drafting concealed carry bills to try to pass, because the last thing they wanted, especially in a city like Chicago where we have so much gun violence, was to have open carry, constitutional carry.
So tell us the difference between the two, if someone doesn't know what that means. The difference between open versus concealed.
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways, right? We have constitutional carry is essentially that you can just strap any gun on you, and it can be out in the open. You can go to a coffee shop,
from anybody.
Visible to anybody,
just hanging off your hip, for example,
or slung on your back at a Starbucks. So there's that. Concealed carry in the state of Illinois meant something like reasonably concealed, and some of that comes down to arbitrary sort of laws and who reports what first and whatnot. But there comes this liability, at least here in Illinois, and I'm sure many other states, in that it falls on the complainant usually. So like if I'm at a gas station and John sees me and we have an argument and we're done arguing and we're just about to go on our way, but I reach for my car door, and as I reach, my shirt comes up a little bit and he sees a glint of a pistol on my hip that's concealed, and John calls the cops, I'm going to be arrested.
Interesting.
That is like legitimately what's going to happen, because John is the one to make the call. Now, if I called and said I had this altercation and somebody may have seen this, it'd go the other way. I mean, they sell it as this huge liability, and in other states it is not sold that way. But it does seem to. I remember when I took a concealed carry class, I was a concealed carry holder for a number of years. I am no longer a concealed carrier. I have no problem saying that, but I will say that one of the things that we were told was, as brother, was it Chris? Jesse said, there are a number of places you should not be carrying as legally, legally defined by the state of Illinois, which are places you're not allowed to carry. Public transportation, public parks, all of these things. And then they also would say afterward, and they would stare at you like laser eyes, this is a concealed carry class. Follow the law.
Yeah.
And so it was a read between the lines moment. And to brother's point, if you can't see it, what does it matter?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, and what I was going to say earlier, but you went on this excellent point, was it's almost geographic as well,
Yeah.
these blanket statements, right? Because look at Virginia. Virginia's open carry. As long as you're 18, you can carry. North Carolina is as well. You can carry pretty much everywhere, with some exceptions, obviously. The other thing, and I don't know if it's like this in Illinois, is that on private property, the owners can determine whether your right to carry is infringed or not, for lack of a better term. Like, you can have a restaurant that says no firearms. It's private property. Doesn't matter whether you're concealed or open carry. You cannot carry in that place. So by that same stretch, Masonic lodges most oftentimes are private property.
Right.
So they fall outside of the open carry in public places laws in most jurisdictions. So, but yeah, no, to your point, I think it's, that example you brought up of you and John having a conversation, which turned into an argument. He sees your weapon. That also geographic more than jurisdictional, right? Like, you go to a place that is very pro Second Amendment, and everybody and their mother is carrying, both open and concealed. So you might get a different.
Yeah, they're probably not going to have a problem.
No, you might tell you, hey, tuck your fupa in because your pizza's coming out. So, or get a different holster.
Well, it was funny, right? Jordan Rumble said Tyler gets an AR-15. JK, maybe. But what's funny about that is, a number of years ago, we talked about lodges in other countries, and we had somebody share an image of a Tyler of a lodge who did have an AK-47 because in that country, lodge is illegal. And so it was kind of like the necessary thing to have.
Military lodges, of course, obviously.
Yeah.
The obvious exception there too.
You will carry a weapon if you go
now
to military lodge.
Where does Illinois stand today? Illinois, I've said this many times, we have a very libertarian style Grand Lodge, in that it's up to the lodge whether they allow it or not the sitting master or whatever. It's just the will of the lodge. And every year at Grand Lodge sessions, when you go to the Grand Lodge secretary store, right next to the books and the stickers and the holy books, you can pick up for free a little no carry sticker that you can slap on your lodge window if you need to, on the door. So you say in Virginia it's totally legal. Like, what's your Grand Lodge's stance?
Well,
yes,
let's go to the big screen.
Oh, tell me it's in your actual. It is
in Virginia's code.
In the law. Yeah.
It's
Section
not in our code.
3.10, the carrying of firearms in subordinate lodges, is permitted under the following circumstances: active and honorably retired federal, state, or local law enforcement officers, and all members of the Grand Lodge Committee on Security, and members of any lodge in which the merciful master has decided to allow a reasonable number of concealed carry permit holders. So we're not talking open carry as written. You can read between the lines, but they're allowed to carry a concealed weapon in the lodge. However, these members must first be examined by the worshipful master, so I guess you have to do that every year, who may delegate such an examination to an active and honorably retired federal, state, or local law enforcement officers to ascertain the member's ability to safely handle firearms and applies solely to the lodge in which they are a member. Then, the lodge secretary will maintain the names of those designated by the worshipful master, and a copy is to be immediately forwarded to the Grand Lodge office. And then one final clause: no member who is carrying a weapon, concealed or openly, shall participate in the floor work of any degree being performed.
I don't know why I love that, but I kind of like the approach.
Why? Tell me more.
Well, I just think that it sort of satisfies the libertarian guy in me that says, hey, you're going to conceal carry? Fine. It shouldn't be seen by anybody. And you're here to be the sheepdog.
And it also gives the worshipful master the authority to rule and govern his lodge.
Yep. And I do like the idea that there is a sort of examination. And I'll give you an example. In a lodge that I have frequented at some point in my life, okay, so you're going to get this objective sort of statement. There is a member who is and has been in dotage for some years who does carry a 380 in his, like, it looks like a cell phone case on his side. And I kind of don't like that because dude can't hear. And to me, this is not security. This is liability.
Yeah. In which I guess you could say in our jurisdiction, the worshipful master has the authority to not allow any brother to enter their lodge. Joe, does that include members of that lodge?
So it depends.
It depends.
Yes, having, as you know, having been someone who's encountered that. So the same law, the Methodical Digest, says that the worshipful master can refuse any visitor from entering the lodge. Oh, I'm sorry, any member of a lodge can refuse a visitor from entering, which has happened in my lodge. Never for a good reason. And before I got there, we could do a whole nother show on that. But so the way the law is written, the worshipful master can excuse any member and ask him to leave. And you can use the blanket statement. You know, most of the times you're going to know the reason, but normally what they'll do is it is causing disharmony in the lodge. So if you're causing disharmony and the worshipful master thinks you're causing disharmony, he can ask you to get the hell out.
So you could argue, one could argue semantically that an older brother in his dotage may be causing disharmony by having his ability to carry.
Well, it's a double-edged sword, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna throw it right out there because I don't care anymore. Yeah, we've had members who have refused visitors from sitting in our lodge for non-Masonic reasons, right?
Like, right. It's
person,
horrible. Yeah.
This person met a certain criteria that they were bigoted against or what have you, and they're like, I don't want this person sitting in lodge, and the master had no choice but to allow them to leave. But on that same token, the master can also be, you're causing disharmony, get the hell out. So, yep. And you know, there's really no.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Oh, there you go, Uncle Ben. But yeah, so it's a double-edged sword. But yeah, I mean, to RJ's point, I would, if I was master and RJ came to me and said, I don't like that this guy's carrying a gun, he's 107 years old and he runs his mouth and I don't like it, that would be enough for me to say, hey brother, you're causing disharmony.
Yep. Sorry.
Go in the parking. Go wait in the parking lot for RJ. So
Well, I think, I mean, that's a very nice sentiment, right? But I have also seen at another lodge I frequent, as a brother was coming in, he was putting on his apron and he ran his hand across and he like sort of remembered he was carrying. And he said, "Excuse me, one moment." And he went into like the your prep area and he unloaded, took the magazine out, cleared chamber, took them together and walked them to the Tyler and said, "Will you watch over these during the meeting?" And he left them in a lockbox outside the lodge. That was an interesting scenario, and I thought, wow, I mean, that is definitely something that could be considered for lodges who have such an option, maybe little lock boxes or something. Or
and I've been to lodges that do have lock boxes. Yeah, and somebody earlier in the chat, I can't remember who it was, talked about police officers. You know, what if police officers come in? So at least in Virginia, the law, the way it's written, yeah, we have. I know I have a couple of law enforcement officers that are members of my lodge, and sometimes they'll try to come to lodge, when they're kind of sort of on duty or in between shifts or whatever. And I've never seen someone have a problem with them coming in uniform. But the way the law is written in Virginia, it doesn't say that those active or retired law enforcement officers have to have it concealed. So
right.
It only gets concealed when it says the master can have certain number of dudes that conceal carry as long as you put his name on a list somewhere.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Have you guys ever experienced somebody who has come to you and asked about why a member conceal carries? Or like, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of the brothers that I sit in lodge with, we have retired law enforcement officers, we have retired federal agents. So, and again, Virginia, in particular, home of the NRA, is in most places, very careful about Second Amendment rights and stuff. But to your point, it really depends on the master. I've seen our lodge have masters where it's like, hey, I need your names, whether you're concealed carrying or not, and if I don't like it, it goes in the lockbox. So.
Yeah,
well, it's a good thing we don't have gun raffles at Masonic events because that would be very ironic and hypocritical.
This is sort of a interesting and
I
topic.
poked the bear. I knew that was going to get RJ going.
Well, my gosh, you guys. So even if we are such a great benevolent society, I will stand by this statement until the end of time. We are clueless sometimes. I will say this. I was standing in line at the UPS store when I got an alert on my phone of a school shooting. And it was the Sandy Hook shooting. And the nation is just reeling on this. 2 days later, there was a large Masonic organization in my neck of the woods, going forward with their AR-15 gun raffle. Like, it was like, I'm laughing out of
read the room, guys. Read the room.
Yeah. I'm laughing out of uncomfortableness here.
Yeah.
I was just like, wow, somebody forgot to stop that from going out today, and it was just like, it was clueless. But that story aside, just tonight we had two things that we talked about at the DDGM meeting, for firearms raffles. Really cool stuff.
Oh yeah.
But, we love our raffles though. So.
Mm-hmm. We do. And so I think the chat's bringing up some good points too. Not so much about like theft in the lodge, but if you follow Chris Hodap's blog for any reasonable amount of time, even since post-COVID, there are some crazies that are going after actual targeting Masonic lodges as well. So there is a greater than 0% chance that a lodge would need to protect itself in some way.
Yeah, I saw that little theft thread going back and forth,
Mhm.
or whatever, and that idea never even crossed my mind as we were talking about this. I don't think anything in the conversations that we're talking about are like brothers are carrying because they're worried about the people inside the lodge with them. I don't think that ever,
Hopefully not. Yes.
never.
You have bigger issues than whether or not you should be able to conceal carry
No,
in
I
your
mean,
lodge. If you can't trust your brothers, you should be able to leave, a stack of hundreds on the floor, and then they'll still be there when you come back.
yeah, along with the crinkly wrappers with the mints,
The
all-
Bob's Mints. Yeah.
my favorite. But yeah, no, I mean, what I thought about when we were going to talk about this show tonight was, all lodges have them. I had them 2 of my 3 years as master. Was the 90-year-old Tyler outside the door, with a dull
Keeping us safe.
in his hand, keeping us safe at 10 o'clock at night.
First line of defense.
Yep.
It's funny because it's true.
Well, I mean, to that end, I think the mentality of most of the what I would call level-headed, responsible owners of firearms that I know who have a concealed carry that are very I don't even know what you would call it, like consistent in their practice. They follow the rules. Like if you're going to conceal carry, they say to always concealed carry. You got to go shooting. You have to have muscle memory, and you got there's all these things to take into consideration. It's not just you take a class and you're friggin' set forever. Like that's not the way this works. And I think our responsible firearm owners are also going to be behind that as well. Now, knowing that, I see these brothers as, for the most part, they're sheepdogs. And not to say like we're all a bunch of wussies walking around, like the sheep
No.
of the bunch, and we don't know. But that responsibility doesn't need to be on everyone, and nor should it be. But if
Sure.
there are those among us who take it upon themselves to be at that level of training, and they've offered themselves as this sort of protector, then, I thank those brothers. But at the same time, I think, having this idea, like how you have in your code this idea of the ensuring of stability in all of the areas, right? Like mental capacity, training, do they know what they're doing? That's very, responsible way to take it. And so with the elevation of quote unquote crazies out there, do I feel safer knowing that maybe somebody from my lodge carries? I don't know if I feel safer, but I also don't dwell on those kinds of things.
It's like an option, right? Joe, you're going to say something?
No, just what RJ was talking about the responsible concealed carry permit holder. I've been to many a concealed carry class over the years. I can tell you that at least half of the people that walk out of that room and get their concealed carry permit are not the responsible. They're the person who gets the class and then stays on for the extra 1 day Nevada license add-on that allows you to conceal carry in 25 other states.
Right.
Never shot a gun before in their life, or will never shoot one again. They just have it and they're carrying in their purse or their wallet or their pocket or whatever, and they are not the people you want holding the line when the poop hits the fan. And
Right.
But you see it every time, right? You see people exercising their right, and it really depends on, number one, the class you go to, and number two, who's teaching the class, and number three, who the students are. Because I can honestly tell you, I've sat in many classes and I'm like, that person should not be carrying a firearm.
Yeah. So, which I think you guys bring up an interesting point is comfort level, right? Because there's a little bit of conversation in the chat there. There's a couple of people here that's like, well, it would be comfortable to know that it's there. You don't have to know who it is, right? But it's good to know that maybe maybe some brother in this lodge room that I'm in has my back should stuff hit the fan. Then you also have another type of viewpoint that you really need to think about too. Brother Jose says, well, okay, how are we supposed to work in harmony knowing someone might be packing? Because, I mean, let's just call it for what it is. Not every lodge meeting is without conflict, right? So there might be some issue that's gets people's blood pressure up a little bit. And that is now a new variable that gets thrown in this, whether you acknowledge it or not. It's yet another thing to consider. You're muted, Joe.
I was muted because what I was going to say was, is it though?
I would say yes, if for no other reason, just knowing that that is another variable to the conversation. Because guess what? Even Masons are crazy. There's a few of those.
Yeah.
That's true. That's
it's
true.
not. It's again a non-zero chance of someone doing the wrong thing.
It's a coalescing of variables. I mean,
Right.
We have a guy who got in the Freemasonry. Over time, have they become more calm, radicalized? Like, who knows? Did they pass background checks? Do they carry? Like, there's so many variables.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I kind of liken it to is also if the person is doing their job, meaning they're a responsible citizen who is exercising this right to conceal carry, and they're doing it in lodge. And if I don't know, then they're doing their job. And it's kind of in a similar way like U.S. Marshals on air flights. Like,
yeah, you don't know who they are.
You don't know if there's a U.S. Marshal or an Air Marshal on your flight.
Mm-hmm.
And if you wouldn't know. And are they concealed carrying? Air marshals, as I understand it, usually are carrying, and they could be amongst you. And I think that sort of, I don't know, like, probably, are you protected? I mean, you're a little bit more. I kind of look at it that way. Like, maybe I don't know. You need to know who it is.
So that was another thought I had coming into this episode: is it really, for harmony's sake, a matter of don't ask, don't tell? That we don't need to.
That was a different government policy.
Oh, that was a different one. So
yeah.
Yes, gotcha. But you see where I'm going with this, right? It's like, is it just better left unsaid, knowing that it is an option, it is authorized by your Grand Lodge to have that ability should the worshipful master elect to have that in their lodge, and then leave it at that, right? The worshipful master might know. I mean, in Virginia, the worshipful master should know, and just say that is on the table, but we don't need to make a big deal out of it either. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a lot. Oh, sorry, RJ.
Nope. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, that the knowledge part, I mean, that is 100% a liability thing, more so than a comfort level thing or a knowledge thing, right? That is 100. So if something actually happens, if there's an incident at your lodge, you damn well better know who was carrying and that it was authorized, and
who's culpable.
Like in Virginia, there's a set of rules, and it's like you got to do this, this, and this, and you got to send it to the Grand Lodge. So, God forbid there is an incident, the liability is minimized. You know what I mean? As opposed to some jurisdictions that don't have a strict set of laws, they could be facing. It doesn't have to be criminal liability; it could be civil liability too. So you've got those concerns there. That the more you're papered up, the better it's going to be for everybody.
Yeah, I think also, when we concern ourselves with these kinds of issues, moving forward in history and looking at legal precedent, the law is one of the biggest reasons people actually stop concealed carrying. Aside from concealed carrying, you're also urged to continue to start having a concealed carry insurance policy. These
Yeah,
are
good
insurance policies that you have as a concealed carry or holder in case of an incident, or in case you do have to discharge your firearm in the event of defense of your family, home, or property. And because of that, this is a large deterrent for people who let these things lapse. Now, when I think about lodges, certainly some people might think, that code you have in Virginia is just unconstitutional and, okay. Sorry, I'm not trying to make fun of you if you felt that way, but I do think that it's a little bit ridiculous to think about it in just that way. We have to think broader of the legal responsibility of the fraternity. We have to have something to point to if something happens,
I can
to
tell you did take
remove
a CCW class.
remove culpability, or to remove responsibility. We have to have some sort of a policy that says, yes, this happened, it's a shame, this was an act of evil, we have strict guidelines, the lodge was following these, and this still happened. And so this is like a good faith measure that Grand Lodges can take. You got to have a policy to point to.
Well, I mean, it's more to your point. It's an overt action because, again, we talked about this at the very beginning of the show. Lodges are not public spaces; they are private property. Okay,
Private organizations.
for
Private
the
property.
people that are rumbling about, oh, my rights, it's private property. It's not a place where your constitutionality is challenged, right? It is private. It's not owned by the government. It is owned by a private entity, and they can do whatever the hell they want with their private space, whether you are a member or not. So,
Yeah, kind of like the free speech, conversation we've had, about, well, Grand Lodge can't tell me what I should post on social media. Well, Grand Lodge can
you're a
tell
member.
you exactly what you can do, and if you choose to ignore it, then you suffer the consequences of that organization. But yeah, very similar rules apply. I was just looking at some of the comments that I was going back to. Let's see. We talked about not naming the state, but some state police brothers have issues about leaving their sidearm in the car. They say they must be armed at all times. What say you? I think we talked a little bit about that.
Yeah, we did. It depends, right? Number one, if you have a brother who is a police officer who is on duty, he should not be sitting in lodge. So he should be out doing his thing, right? He should be out working. He shouldn't be in lodge.
He's looking for criminals in the lodge.
But you know what I mean? If he's sitting out there looking on his phone, opening up mints instead of working, and he's on shift, that's a problem. So
yeah.
But outside of that, I mean, my experience has been it's really up to that brother police officer, right? And I've never seen, at least I've never sat in a lodge where that's been challenged. Like if you got a brother who's coming on or off duty, it's part of his uniform. I know some brothers who come off shift will come in their shop or their squad car, and they will change when they get to lodge. I've seen some brothers that come in uniform too. So it really depends up to that individual brother as well as the laws of your jurisdiction.
It depends.
Yeah, I'm with Joe. I've seen on a number of occasions brothers who have just got off shift and they're an officer and they're sitting in a deacon's chair in belt and badge. They're still strapped. We kind of look past it, like we know the guy, we there was no discomfort, so it never really came up.
This is an interesting comment we also got from the Humanist Lodge of Freemasons. That order does not have any rules or provisions regarding concealed carry, although their rituals call for all Master Masons to have a sword, a tradition dating back to when a sword was an acceptable carry in European society. Would it be acceptable in our lodge? It depends on each individual venerable master.
That's interesting. Particularly the history of the swords. But, those swords are really, even of that age, were not necessarily considered defensive or offensive, but rather ceremonial. So
Right.
it's kind of like y'all watch the Righteous Gemstones. Their family's like a member of like the what is it, like the Cloak and Pistol or whatever, and they all have their pistols right here. It's interesting. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's yet another approach, right? So hopefully you're getting the sense here. There is no clear answer. It's going to depend on comfort, jurisdiction, laws of your state, and many more variables.
Andre
Oh,
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. I was going to say, Andre Peliquin said thoughts on non-firearm weapons like concealed long knives, switchblades, eagle talon knives. What's interesting about that is concealed carry Illinois is a state that does consider, like, concealed carry is not limited to firearms.
Oh, interesting.
So, for us, it also means things like these. I generally don't have any kind of problem with knives or anything, even though they, attacks with knives and things are much more intimate. Let's say they happen at close quarters, but when you take a concealed carry firearm class, they'll tell you that 90% or more of altercations involving firearms happen within arm's length. So it's not like you're having this gunfight across the room. It's more like the guy is literally on you and you've put your 380 into his chest right here and just, shot a few times. So it's interesting. But I guess for me, and maybe it's just there's some sort of a logical break there, but I generally don't view the knife as threatening as, say, as a firearm.
Well, I mean, if a brother came in with a concealed like Gurkha or a machete, then I would be slightly concerned.
Because it's unusual.
It's like, oh, don't look at my machete.
Don't look at it.
Look over there.
Look at
You're like a Norcist brother who comes in with like 2 crossed battle axes.
If you're doing your Leonardo Comic-Con costume and you've got both katanas ready to whip out.
Hey, as long as he's got his CCW.
So are we starting a concealed carry affinity lodge?
Yeah,
It's gonna be a very quiet lodge.
Yeah, how about it?
Like nobody's gonna talk.
yeah.
That's
I think it is interesting, talking about this topic. We haven't, and it probably isn't because it was about concealed carry or whatever, but the incident stemming from, I think it was in New York, right? It was a long time ago. There was
March
like a sort
8th,
of a
2004.
a guy actually got shot in the head.
It was a hazing incident where it was completely unauthorized ritual, that just something that a lodge that had a lot of law enforcement officers as brothers. I'm just reading off this article here. At one point, he was seated in a chair in the basement. A brother was to aim a pistol loaded with blanks at him and fire it. However, the brother with the gun pulled out the other gun in the other pocket, which did not have blanks, shooting him in the face and killed him on the spot. Yeah,
that's weird. This guy H. Roller McNewt, he said Illinois requires to have a FOID card. So in Illinois, a FOID card is a firearm owner identification card, which you have to pay $10. So it is a fee to exercise your Second Amendment right, which some people view as a violation of constitutional law in and of itself. But you have to have
not be infringed.
This is correct, but not levied, not to levy a tax against. In forms of fees. You can do everything in the Bill of Rights as long as you have bills. Requires you to have a FOID card to buy a knife too. I wonder. I mean, I've never encountered that, but I'm not discounting it either. I know we have interesting laws for blades over like 4 inches, 6 inches, things like that. So, yeesh.
Mm-hmm. Brother Jose has a good question, thought-provoking question. What would you think, since we talked about the lockbox idea, if an incoming worshipful master put in the budget to have a well-secured lockbox and announced his intention was that no weapons were to be carried into his lodge during his year. What do you say, Joe?
Well, if we're going to use the Virginia Methodical Digest, that master, the way I understand it, couldn't tell any active or retired law enforcement or members of the Grand Lodge Committee on Security that
Okay.
they can't carry a weapon.
All right.
Everybody
enough.
else would be okay.
Gotcha. So that exception aside, law enforcement officers, etc. But if you are a regular member that, on your honor, would you wanted to have a concealed carry and wanted to attend that lodge, what would you do? Would you do it anyway? Respect the worshipful master's preference?
I
I mean,
think-
that gets interesting.
I think I would always respect the master's preference in that instance, especially somebody who, like, I own a FOID card. Sure. I do not currently have a valid CCW. So,
Or the other option is just don't go. You could say, hey, worshipful, I appreciate you. I understand why you're doing that. I'm just going to go visit this other lodge until the remainder of your year.
But also, I think there's probably, look, outside of the idea that it's for firearms or CCW items, maybe that's also a good idea just to have in general. Like, throw your phones in there.
Wouldn't that be nice?
That would
Gee
be nice.
whiz.
For my
not
cold,
have-
dead hands, you're going to get my cell phone.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it depends on. I think a good lodge would support the master in that endeavor, and assured, by the idea, like your code, that look, the people who may be carrying, are worthy and well qualified.
And you're not going to please everybody. That's the other thing. If you haven't learned that as worshipful master, you're going to learn that real quick.
Then we're going back to the liability thing. Like, if Brother Jose, let's say he's sitting, he's master of a lodge and some stuff goes down and he's issued this edict, and you have a brother who was concealed carry and discharges his firearm.
Yeah.
I mean, the liability there just goes through the roof. You know what I mean? It's like, well, you weren't supposed to have a firearm because that was your rules, but you discharged your firearm and something bad happened. That's just lawsuits galore. So that's not covered by your, $500,000 policy, that covers you for tornadoes and stuff like that. That's going to be costly.
Brother Jim Walker says, I think I have been to more lodge meetings in lodge where guns are either won during a raffle or showing off than not. And I think that's really funny because, like, I've never been in a lodge where somebody's been like, check this out, right? But, if somebody like just walked out and was like, this baby was made in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's got a cobalt steel barrel, and a hair trigger. This is my boomstick. Okay, so if he went off with his Army of Darkness type thing, I'd be all about it. But no, I've never been in a. I could picture it though. Like, I know, Is concealed carry more common than decent meals?
Yes. 1,000% yes.
Oh my God, Sun Card with the truth. What? What?
Wow.
It was really funny. That actually came up tonight at the Masters and Wardens meeting. We were talking about, how much to charge for meals. And they were like, well, it's got to be, like a decent meal or whatever. And Bob, Big Brother Bob, my master, says, most of the time we just roll with some Caesar's pizza because it's cheap. It's like, it's true. We do that.
What was it? It was Jason's lodge, right? That for years, their meal before they're stated was it Domino's?
It was Costco pizza or something like
Costco pizza. That's what it was.
Dude, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Good hash, bad hash. I got the gun. That's right, Mikey. Concealed green beans into lodge. Oh, Joe hates you.
I don't have a mute button anymore because I would have muted him.
Oh,
Nice.
gosh.
All right. Well, this has been fantastic. Lots of opinions in the chat. And so, yeah, thought-provoking. It's not a hypothetical. Like, this is going on in jurisdictions around the world. And so we have to just consider that and be aware of, if you're pro concealed carry, make sure you know, as you are a traveling man, what the rules are in your jurisdiction you're going to as well.
Well, and if you can't find any rules, ask somebody.
Yeah, that's
'Cause
true.
somebody's asked this question before. So if your grand jurisdiction hasn't codified it, somebody's asked the question.
Mhm.
So get that answer.
Nice. All right. So to wrap things up, I was trying to think of like a creative question of the day to put a bow on this thing. And the first thing that comes to mind, unless a better one comes along, is based on what you know now and the conversations, the rules, the laws, the emotions, the brotherhood and harmony that needs to go into that. If you were a Grandmaster today and needed to make a decision on to allow this, let's just call it concealed carry as an option, how would you approach it, and why? Joe.
Damn it. No, I mean, this answer is easy for me. I kind of like how my mother jurisdiction does it. I think it's well reasoned and it's also documented. So, outside of the geography, I'm sure there are many grand jurisdictions where the sentiment in that area is, either very, very gun rights heavy or very, very, not gun rights heavy. But I think having it documented ensures that it reduces liability issues, makes sure that everybody's informed, and kind of sets the tone for the expectations. And I'm a big fan of documenting things up. It's better to have something written than second guess yourself later when something bad has happened. So I wouldn't change a thing. I think it's a good policy, and it was decently written, and it lays out what you can and cannot do. So I'm quite okay with that. So I would leave it as is.
Nice. Good call. RJ?
I love the policy. And I also, speaking of the Virginia policy, I think this is a very solid way to go. I would absolutely give accolades to the group or amalgamation of brothers who came together to put that in writing. If I were Grandmaster for this sort of a thing, I think I would likely. I like the way our jurisdiction has it today, which is essentially it's up to each individual lodge. Now, that isn't codified outside of, I think, what they would call like an edict or a Grandmaster's communication, where he implements something in a year and it's up to the next Grandmaster to either carry it or address it, or he does nothing with it and it stays law. I would like to see, if I were the Grandmaster, I would say that it was up to each lodge whether or not to allow this. And if they do allow this, then I think some sort of a policy needs to be implemented, like the Virginia policy. I'm not sure that I would extend it to your regular civilian brothers. Nothing against regular civilian brothers who are well trained in these things. I'm not doubting that. I'm strictly speaking from a legal and liability sort of angle. And as a lodge secretary of 2 lodges and other organizations, look, I don't want to have to deal with all that paperwork. Look, I'm a Freemason. I'm about philosophy and enlightenment. Like, don't threaten me with additional legal work that stretches out into
Administrivia.
into the real world. I don't want to have to maintain records of that kind, and mostly because I'd be terrified, like, if I missed something and something happened. And I think there's a number of secretaries who'd probably feel that way too. So Yeah, I don't know, man. I think, yeah, playing it safe, probably the Virginia way is the best way.
All right. Interesting. Yeah, I think I agree. The approach is one where, again, you have to consider lodge cultures are different. There may be cultures of lodges that completely,
That's the word,
don't want
culture.
anything about it, right? Because we have to respect that. And that's something we talked about lots of times in the show. And so you will get a mix of pro-gun, anti-gun, and everywhere in between. And so you need to have policies and rules that allow that flexibility to say that this is, allowed but not required, and give people the option, but do it with specific guardrails. Like Joe said, make sure it's auditable for liability purposes. I mean, lodges and grand lodges have their own insurance policies that they need to carry. So obviously there's rules that are by law or by policy, by contract, that they have to follow as well. So these are all considerations. So outright banning it or outright letting it be the Wild West really are two different polar opposites of probably the sweet spot in the middle. And in general, I would probably say it's much more of a, should it be an issue? We danced around that topic a little bit tonight, but when it works best is when you don't even know about it, when you don't know it's there, and you can actually just get back to work and get back to working in the quarries, which is like,
What's that
Archie said.
Futurama quote when Bender meets God? And it's Phil Lamar. Says, if you've done it right, they won't think you've done anything at all.
That's it. I love it. Yes. Now I got to go back and watch that episode again. Well, this has been great. It's been interesting. Thank you all very much for watching, and keep searching for more light. Have a good night.